Hey, good morning, everyone. This is John, of course, and we are heading into the last week. So I know we don't have any discussion questions this week, but I wanted to let me turn up the volume here. Hopefully, you guys can hear me just fine. Um, Wanted to discuss a handful of takeaways from the class as you focus on your final projects and get them submitted so we can get the final grades done. As you can see, I think behind me here in Denver, it is cold and drizzly. See, it's gray and rainy. So we go from 70, 75 degree weather to cold and rainy. I think it's supposed to be back in the 70s this week. So a couple things before I get to the takeaways. First is I think I've graded most of the discussion questions, at least I think all of them that were submitted for week 7 already. And I try to get that done fairly quickly because it takes me a little bit longer to grade those 2 final projects. And please understand I haven't gotten a great hang of the grading deadline and the final grade submission and the time constraints for that final grade submission yet, and grading these 2 final projects. Typically, and I'm sure that'll be the case this time, they want final grades submitted by I think 2 days, so probably by next Tuesday, so 2 days after the class ends. So that means all assignments need to be graded before that time so I can get the final grade submitted. So I'm going to try to provide the best feedback I can, just understand the constraints that I'm under. Hopefully I gave you some meaningful feedback on the first drafts of these assignments that you'll know kind of how to move forward and finalize the final drafts. And again, as you're submitting these, just a warning to those that either received A's or great grades on the initial drafts. Please pay attention to the rubric because they're much more detailed. Just because you got an A, please don't just resubmit it, because that does not necessarily guarantee you an A for the final draft of that. So please keep that in mind, and please know that I just go down the rubric for these assignments and just look at the rubric requirement, go to the paper, and make my assessment based on that and what the rubric says is required for that section. So again, it's super helpful to me if you have section headers that just outline the flow based on the requirements of the rubric. If you don't, that's fine. I mean, I'll still read it and follow it, and it'll be fine. It just makes it a little bit easier. So anyways, with that, I do want to just, if you don't take anything away from this class, just a handful of high-level bullet points that I hope you do take away from the class, and I think that, to me at least, are the most relevant. I think the theory is good. I think having a basic understanding of ethical theories and how they form our own personal values and the personal values and the thought process of others, I think that's really important. The few things that I think are really important and I hope you take away from this class is, number one, there is a marked distinction between ethical issues and legal issues, and hopefully you were able to make that distinction as we worked on the different aspects of the Aitraldi case. And one of the assignments asked for what are the legal components. Another one asked for what are the ethical issues, and I know this final assignment asked for both. And so I think it's important to understand that someone can act, and I'm not saying the defendant in that case acted ethically, but theoretically someone could act completely ethically, no ethical issues, and still confront or face potential legal liability if the elements are arguably met for a malpractice action. So please keep that in mind, that malpractice does not in and of itself mean that there's some compromising of ethical values. So that's important. The other thing is just, one thing that we've been emphasizing throughout this class is the concept of a legal analysis, or analysis in general. So, for example, in a malpractice case, there are 4 specific elements that need to be analyzed, and it's one thing to look at facts and say, oh yeah, that's clearly did something wrong here. He did X, Y, and Z wrong. Well, that's not an analysis. That's sort of a gut reaction to the facts that are presented. A legal analysis will outline, okay, these are the 4 elements. For a malpractice case, you've got a duty. What's the rule there? How is a duty created? And then what are the facts, and apply the facts to the rule. And it's that IRAC method that the text talks about: issue, rule, application, and conclusion. And then second element. Okay, so you've established a duty. Go on to the next element. Okay, was there a breach of the standard of care? Okay, what is the standard of care? What is that rule? What are the facts? Apply it. Conclusion. Next, causation. Direct, proximate causation, same thing. And then finally, was there harm, or were there damages? Remember that in a malpractice case, if any of those elements are missing, then you don't really have a case. And so you need all those elements have to be proven by a preponderance of the evidence, or more likely than not, in order to have a viable malpractice action. So that critical thinking is so important in anything that you do, particularly in the healthcare industry. But that skill, and it is a skill that takes practice, is really important. So please remember that. Remember that when we talked about the HIPAA stuff and that discussion question regarding that hypothetical scenario of I think it was a PT who received a phone call and talked to her supervisor and so on. And my question was, the question of the discussion was there a breach? And my question was, before you answer that question, it's important to know what breach means. And so if you look deep into the HIPAA regulations and requirements, you can see that breach is a defined term. And there are actually a number of factors that have to be considered in order to know whether or not a breach occurred. And so you can't just say, okay, so-and-so disclosed this information without patient's consent, therefore it's a breach. That's not how it works. You have to understand what the term breach means, understand what those factors are, analyze those factors, and come to your conclusion based on the facts. And so remember, words are important, defined terms are important, and that'll be important as you continue in your careers. And then I think just some random stuff that I jotted down, things like things that we discussed regarding the business and economics of healthcare, the different healthcare delivery models, the different government programs, Medicare, Medicaid, Medicare Advantage, managed care, private group health plans, the different fraud and abuse laws, anti-kickback statute, HIPAA, Stark Law, Civil Monetary Penalties Law, False Claims Act, and all the regulations, the regulatory bodies between the federal government and the state government, with respect to privacy, with respect to insurance, with respect to all kinds of stuff, medical records. There's a lot of regulation going on in the business of healthcare, both from the federal standpoint and the state standpoint. And so, anyways, I didn't have a lot this week. I just wanted to kind of throw out my big takeaways from the class. I appreciate all the meaningful discussion in this class. It's been really great. It's been a pleasure facilitating that discussion, and hopefully you receive some value out of it, and can take some of the skills that we've discussed and apply them in your careers. And I wish you all the best of luck in your future endeavors and your careers, and your both your educational and professional careers. So with that, please know that I am around obviously this week. If you have any questions, concerns, if you want to talk through anything, please let me know. I will make myself available for that. I will continue grading these assignments, and please know that if we've made an arrangement for an extension, or if you need some additional time for assignments, that's fine, but please know that I really need to have all the assignments in by this Sunday evening. So that'll give me enough time to make sure everything's graded, and grades are in by, I think, next Tuesday is probably going to be the deadline. So anyways, have a great week, and let's keep moving forward. Thanks.